When it came time to do Pocahontas, I thought, well, this is going to be a really challenging story because it's very different than all the others. This is not a fairy tale. There was a real girl who's buried in England named Pocahontas. And you take it seriously that what you're going to draw becomes the established version of that character for generations to come. I mean, when you think of the Beast, you think of Disney's Beast. You don't think of all the other versions that might have looked like a bear or something else. Or when you think of the Little Mermaid, you think of Disney's Little Mermaid. So the first thing I did is I thought, well, gee, I wonder if somebody has done a drawing of Pocahontas already. And sure enough, somebody had, and here it is. See, obviously Pocahontas is a very attractive-looking woman here. All we had to do was just go ahead and paint the cell now. She can say, oh, hello, John Smith, I love you. Oh, we're already set to go. So what I'd like to do now is just show you a drawing. When I did Ariel, she was kind of your girl next door kind of a look, a very Disney kind of a character. The turned up nose, actually I designed her based on my wife, has very much this kind of a look without the fins. I better do a good drawing, I'll be in hot water with Ariel here. Now, Ariel's eyes were big and expressive, big, super hair. I don't know why I get all these characters with long hair, the Beast and Pocahontas and Ariel, and I don't have much at all. I'm jealous while I'm animating. So here you can see Ariel in very rough, kind of a quick sketch. Now, Pocahontas, as an ethnic person, somebody whose design should be very different than the Caucasian kind of a look, just about in every area of design, she's the opposite of Ariel. Instead of a very high forehead like Ariel, Pocahontas has a lower forehead, more of an Asian kind of a look. Instead of these big eyes, her eyes are very narrow. They're straighter, slightly angled. Where Ariel's chin comes in here, cheek comes in, Pocahontas's goes out. Where Ariel's eyebrows are very arched, Pocahontas's are more flat. Where Ariel's nose curves up, Pocahontas's is straight and actually curves in a little bit. Where Ariel's mouth curves up, Pocahontas's goes the opposite direction. Maybe with a little curve at the end just to take some of the, so she's not too fierce. But this girl is a very proud, strong Indian, a princess. The design of Pocahontas and Ariel are very different, just like as the story is. This story is probably the most subtle in terms of animation and expression that we've ever done. We're constantly questioning, are we really up to doing this? And every week we find that we've accomplished something that we didn't think we could possibly have done. I can't wait for you to see this film. Anyway, so that's my little rough indication of Pocahontas. Just one last thing. I want to go back to that original drawing of Pocahontas. I thought it would be interesting to take a look at her one more time. And I did a drawing over top to see just how historically accurate we ended up being with our design. And so I think the guy was a better drawing maps than people in this case. So I adjusted Pocahontas slightly over there, and you can see we are historically accurate in this film, if anybody asks.
Before the crew came on and joined me, I was, as was Glenn also, working on trying to create the character look, which means design the model, how he looked physically. All the physical attributes and description of the character, you try to flesh those out. You know, even what color is his hair, his eyes, what's his facial structure, what kind of body does he have. You begin looking around for influences in attitude, and in physical ingredients that you can start to attach to this character concept. I was watching a lot of Errol Flynn movies, things about Errol Flynn that were very appealing, that seemed like John Smith personal attributes that I would try to use. Things about Mel Gibson that were very handy, I thought, to use so that the recorded voice married itself well enough to the actual drawn physical person. And once again, things about his personal exploits that John Smith wrote about himself that were kind of real informative in arriving at the final drawn concept of what John Smith was all about. And then engaging in maybe 100 to 150 feet of experimental animation, just sort of test driving the model, so to speak. Moving him, having mock dialogue scenes, trying to flesh out what the character was all about in motion. And then once everybody thought that was working, then we started to recruit the crews. And I started with a few people at a time until finally I had this army of 14 guys working with me on executing all the animation. And once the look of the character is established, I'll do maybe 2 or 3 key scenes that kind of establish how he looks, how he acts, what his attitude is. It tries to answer all the questions for the co-workers of how do they approach the animation on Captain John Smith.
Ratcliffe is more of an archetype than the other characters are. He has to carry the greed and racism in the picture, so it helps to give the audience a little distance so that they can sit back and look at him and say, I don't identify with him in the least. He's greedy and corrupt, so we sort of translate those character traits into geometrical shapes, and that's basically how it arrives. In the earlier versions of Ratcliffe, he was much more pear-shaped, and as we realized he was turning into more of a nasty villain in development, we raised his center of gravity to his chest, so he seems more pompous and nasty and arrogant and physically menacing.
The character has a lot of humor, which is something that a lot of grandmothers have, and we didn't want to just play her as just this serious sort of sage that just spouts advice without having any fun. So I think she comes off real well.
Come closer, John Smith. He has a good soul, and he's handsome too.
When we see Grandmother Willow, we're seeing traditional hand-drawn animation, which is her face. The other part of her, her cowl, and the rest of the tree is done by computer.
Basic idea is we'll go ahead and get the entire tree digitized in, and that would include the cowl and everything except for the face, which will include the whole trunk, the stump, the roots. And then we'll go ahead and set up a 3D camera and get any view of that. We'll generate a hard copy plot, and then we'll get that out over to Chris. You can animate on top of that just like you would any normal layout. And then once we animate and match your roughs, that'll go over to Don, and you can go ahead and match that to what's been done in cleanup.
You're seeing the hand-drawn animation, then the CGI element, which is the trunk and the cowl. Then you're seeing probably 10 to 15 hand-drawn different texture layers on her face, which includes not just bark texture, but lighting, any highlights, shadows, all of that. And then the vines. So on one scene, it could have 25 to 30 levels, and the computer will try to work out whatever it can to help us along, to still achieve a uniform look, because we're trying to do something that all looks like it's in one universe. So the computer is a great tool for helping us do things that would take us years to do, say as tree bark actually moving. That could take, again, like I said, years to do, whereas for them it could take a few months.
For this film, we were going for more of a realistic feel for the animals, but not sacrificing personality and character. And originally on this film we had a turkey character that actually spoke, and it was decided later on that silence is golden. and tilted them up a little more and made them a lot thinner. So they're really tiny and thin, unlike most comedy characters in the past. We want it to be very realistic, very convincing, and but also have a sense of character and personality.
Percy did have a voice early on, and we did experimental footage with one of the voices, and that gave us quite a bit of information to go off with. So we'll do walk cycles just to get the right attitude. And for him, it was a snooty sort of attitude with his little rump in the air and that curly tail, and also his chin way up. So we played with that attitude quite a bit, and that's an attitude that carries through most of the film. So the combination of doing all these tests and knowing that these don't have to be in the film, and just playing and creating, I think we get a lot out of that. Now, the character may not look like that in the end, but it's the process of just trying this and seeing if that works, trying something else, and keep pushing towards something that finally feels that's him. That's it.
An art director is responsible in an animated film for coordinating all the visual elements in a movie. That goes for the backgrounds, the scenic design that the character is going to be against, as well as the character themselves. Is very realistic. We definitely were inspired by the landscape of Virginia, but like all things in animation, you really heighten that experience, so it's somewhat extreme. And we have these extremely tall pine trees that seem to shoot up to the heavens, and we have this this landscape that seems to go on and on until infinity. So we had extreme horizontals and verticals, which we sort of exploited in the film as a design conceit. And you use these things as your building blocks, and then the directors and myself and some key animators, we start talking about what the design of our film is, what those visual hooks are that's going to coordinate the environment with the characters. And so that's when we talked about, well, we have lots of verticals in our movie, these tall, tall vertical trees. Maybe we can incorporate those verticals in the characters. You'll notice Pocahontas has tons of verticals in her hair, even the verticals in the fringe. Even Ratcliffe has vertical striping going down his chest, and as well as his valet Wiggins, and John Smith has that motif as well. So that's how you blend things one on top of another and layer them. And the audience certainly isn't aware of it, but it really helps inform a look for an entire movie.
If I Never Knew You was written for the night before John Smith is going to be executed. And Pocahontas comes to the tent and she tells him how horrible she feels and how sorry she feels. And he says,
"If I never knew you, if I never felt this love, I would have no inkling of how precious life can be."
it is the song moment where they acknowledge their love for each other. And in something that's so blatantly a love story, it's a shame to miss that. I like that it's in. I like that it challenges the boundaries of the animated feature a little bit.
We loved the song. It expressed what John Smith needed to express. He's telling Pocahontas that no matter what happens from this point forward, my life is better because you and I were together.
It's really giving you a new appreciation for the depth of the feeling between John Smith and Pocahontas. You knew they loved each other, but now in this song, look in the eyes of those characters and look at the love they have for each other.
Judy has one of these voices that just carries with it so much musicality and so much emotion.
I've lived my whole life.
Mel is known as an actor, he's not known as a singer, and to hear his voice, and it's a pretty good voice, is such a plus.
When the question was asked on the preview cards, what's your favorite song in the movie?
The music in this movie is very important. We will have probably one of the most complex and probably the largest scores ever written for a Disney animated feature. There's a lot of music. Alan Menken, who wrote Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid, is the composer, and Stephen Schwartz is the lyricist.
The people at Disney recommended Stephen, and I thought about it for a minute and realized that Stephen's style would be just perfect for this, because he's very American in his style. There's something that is brilliantly both theater and in a sense folk and classic about his writing. And I just really felt that he and I would be able to find a voice that was unique, to the two of us together. And we did. We started working together, and the first song we wrote was the song.
It was very powerful. It also defined the movie, what the movie was going to be about, because it was at the early stages of developing the story, and it's very important to know what your story is going to be, what it's about, where it's going to begin, where it's going to end. And when Stephen came up with the title of Colors of the Wind, and then developed his lyric, it helped greatly to tell us what this movie should be.
It was just one of those magical things that happen. It's about things that I feel strongly about, and musically, Alan also feels strongly about these things, and he found a way of expressing it, I think, in a very beautiful and, again, deceptively simple way. It was just one of those things where we really knew what we wanted to say. We knew who this person was. We were able to find the parts of ourselves that beat in synchronicity, if you will, with Pocahontas on these particular thoughts, and it just happened.
It's not like you get in a room and you go, hey, boy, we're just great together, we love each other and this is wonderful. In fact, there's tension. And we're both, in a sense, we're both, lunging for the keyboard to play, because he's a composer too. And I'm, someone who has had a lot of experience writing lyrics, and also used to having a lot of input into lyrics. And Stephen actually has been fine about this, but just finding out where where one leaves off and the other begins, and where it's okay to overlap, and what kind of relationship there will be there. And that's what the early sessions are all about. It's when the first song is concluded, and you have something and you play it for people and you get a response, then I think what's there. It's all about the work for both Stephen and me.
When you're collaborating with someone, and I think Alan and I have had and continue to have a really wonderful and happy collaboration, sometimes one knows that the words have to be supported, that this is a song where the words are important. Savages is an example of that, and in a way the music has to keep out of the way of the words. Sometimes the music is really important, and I always feel that the job of the lyric is to let you know what the song is about very clearly and simply, and then get out of the way. I would say that Just Around the River Bend is an example, particularly the chorus. It's like, stay out of the way of that great music, and If I Never Knew You is certainly a song like that, where once you've said, if I never knew you, basically that's the story of the song. Then you just want to kind of stay out of the way of the music. Colors is so astounding with the lyric. First of all, she has an extraordinary instrument. Just as a singer, she's got a range that goes from a deep, rich belt, if you will, if you're talking in Broadway terms, or alto, if you're talking in technical terms. She just goes right on up to a real soprano with no break whatsoever. It sounds effortless in any register.
Just around the river
It may be a matter of speed. It may be he has to relax just slightly.
Or maybe that you have to relax into the faster tempo.
I think that's what it is. It's like, oh my God, we're playing fast still. It still feels like that to me. Instead of just going, it just doesn't sit there. You know what I mean? It's like
I think they bring out something in each other, of what in the best in each other. I mean, Stephen is a wonderful lyricist, and he's a composer in his own right. And Alan is a great composer and understands, film and the theater.
This monument stands on the original site of Jamestown, now owned and protected by the Association for the Preservation of Virginia Antiquities. This is the spot where 104 English colonists landed in 1607, the year Pocahontas and John Smith first met. Over the years, the story of the beautiful Pocahontas and the dashing Captain Smith has evolved into an epic romantic legend, a blend of historical fact and romanticized fantasy. But there's a great deal of disagreement among many historians about the true details of this event. Though the film was inspired by the folklore and fables surrounding the legend of Pocahontas, Disney filmmakers knew that the character of Pocahontas was at the heart of the story. They realized somehow they would have to get to know her if they were going to capture her spirit. This is the Susan Constant at Jamestown Settlement in Virginia, a living history museum located next to the site of the original Jamestown. This Susan Constant is a full-scale replica of one of the 3 ships that brought Captain John Smith and the English colonists to Virginia. In 1607, the English believed that the New World was a place to find fortune and glory. But what did Pocahontas think when she first saw the billowing sails of the Susan Constant? That was one of the first questions the Disney filmmakers asked when they began work on the film. How would Pocahontas react to the English settlers? What would she think? What would she feel? What kind of person was Pocahontas? Before they could tell her story, they would have to get to know her.
We were trying to really find Pocahontas's tone. We knew we wanted her to be a very spiritual person, somebody who has a connection with nature all the time and whose thoughts run deeper than might seem at surface. But she also always had a playful side, a mischievous side that we also wanted to capitalize upon for the entertainment value of that. So it took the fine balance to find who Pocahontas was.
The Disney creative team knew right away that the legend of Pocahontas had all of the ingredients of a great film. They began to develop the script and storyline by conducting intensive research into Pocahontas' story. At the same time, art director Mike Giamo had to figure out how the film should look.
We feel that we've really pushed a lot of boundaries in this film in terms of design and color. An art director is responsible in an animated film for coordinating all the visual elements in a movie. So it deals with the grand scale and the small in terms of environment.
Historians among themselves can't agree that we had a certain amount of license to use what is known from the folklore to create this story.
The Disney animators knew that somehow they had to capture the personality and character of Pocahontas. Animator Glenn Keane traveled to Virginia to absorb the ambiance of the actual location of the story.
At the early stage, you have to find something that's going to inspire you. In the case of Pocahontas, I thought, I need to go to Jamestown. I need to go to Jamestown to experience whatever might happen. So I went down there, and I remember walking around out in the woods, picturing maybe it was right under these trees here that John Smith was waiting for Pocahontas.
The more they learned, the more Pocahontas' story captivated the imaginations of the Disney filmmakers. But to make the characters completely believable, they had to find the right actors to provide the characters' voices. While the animators could capture the image of the characters, the actors had to capture their spirit. If you walk the footsteps of a stranger, you'll learn things you never knew you never knew. That's one of lyricist Stephen Schwartz's favorite lines from The Colors of the Wind, one of the new songs written by him and composer Alan Menken for the film Pocahontas. That line is really at the heart of the film because it means that if you try to see things from someone else's point of view, you will gain a great wisdom and a deep understanding of others. When actors are asked to perform a character voice in a Disney animated film, they're not being asked to merely read words. They are being asked to totally focus their acting talents on bringing their particular character to life. And when an actor really gets under the skin of his character, he may learn things he never knew he never knew.
it's a good deal more complicated than I would have imagined. It's all just a process of like experimentation and so on. They have a pretty clear idea of what they want when they come in, and they communicate that to me as an actor as best they could. It's like cutting off some of your senses and just using one aspect of yourself, and you have to use a lot more imagination. There's a world of possibilities there in animation that don't exist elsewhere. And they're all at someone's fingertips.
Flit, he's back. Come on, Miko.
She brought a depth to the performance of Pocahontas that is different than, say, with Ariel or Jasmine or Belle. Pocahontas is more of a woman instead of a teenager. And there's got to be a sincerity and a nobility in the way she speaks.
This is how we say hello. Wingapo.
Like everything else in this picture, less is more. And Irene gave a performance that was very controlled and confident. It fit perfectly with Pocahontas.
Another voice fit perfectly with Pocahontas as well. The beautiful singing voice of Judy Kuhn.
I guess I didn't realize what incredibly complicated and painstaking process it is and how many layers there are as the thing evolves. You know, I guess maybe I thought I'd just go into the studio and sing a song and that would be the end of that, but it's more complicated and involved than that, and it's a much bigger challenge than that.
You can own the earth and still all you'll own is earth until you can paint with all the colors of
Actor David Ogden Stiers was challenged to play two parts.
Well, David is just a great actor. I mean, he not only plays Ratcliffe, he also plays his man.
If there's anybody on the planet who could have given Powhatan's voice the warmth, the depth, and the scope than Russell Means. When we had him in to read a couple of lines for us, we were all blown away by the depth that he brought.
Whenever the wind moves through the trees, I feel her presence. I looked at Powhatan and at my own ancestors in trying to capture his spirit, and I was able to identify with Powhatan and become part of him. It was actually very easy because he's my role model.
Hello, John Smith.
Pocahontas, that tree is talking to me.
Then you should talk back.
Casting the human characters was challenging enough, but how do you find someone to play a 400-year-old tree? Well, you find an Academy Award-winning actress named Linda Hunt.
We wanted a tree that sounded 400 years old, but with a great deal of liveliness. So she managed to do both of those things and give Grandmother Willow a humorous edge as well as being a spiritual guide for Pocahontas.
He has a good soul. And he's handsome, too.
Oh, I like her.
She knew exactly how to read each line. She had very strong opinions on it, and she was always dead on. She's just a tremendous actress.
They put hidden video cameras around the place and they catch you reading. And every now and then you catch, in the cartoon itself, you catch that they've stolen an expression off your face. You can see what they've done. It's very clever, very clever.
Watching a Disney animated film is like watching a magic trick. Audiences can get so absorbed in the movie that they actually begin to feel what the characters are feeling. Bringing a Disney animated feature to life takes a lot of talent and hard work, but there are a few secrets that we are about to discover.
I can't draw without really feeling it and believing it. Eric Larson, one of the old timers in animation, kept saying to me, "Glenn, you've got to animate with sincerity." Okay, animate with sincerity. I put my pencil down the paper, and what does that mean? Do you press harder on the pencil? Do you grit your teeth more? I mean, what is sincerity? And as I listened to these guys talk about Pinocchio and Snow White, and I found out that they weren't referring to cartoon characters. These were real people that they knew. They just happened to be drawings. When I first started, I thought animation was about a lot of moving drawings. And I find that that's not what it's about. It's not about moving drawings. It's about drawings that move people.
Supervising animator John Pomeroy is a history buff who has done extensive reading about early America, including the actual autobiographical writings and journals of the real Captain John Smith.
It's the amount of substance that the animator will craft into the character. Sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's hidden.
During the process of creative discovery, a few things might just happen. The animators call them creative accidents, but unfortunately they are rare.
New Yorkers are accustomed to big events and worldwide attention, but even the most skeptical of them were doing double takes the week of June 3, 1995, as 4 giant movie screens arose over the treetops of Central Park, and a mammoth stage was being constructed on the Great Lawn. It was all part of the preparation for the world premiere of Disney's 33rd animated feature, Pocahontas. The event took more than 9 months to plan, and according to Richard Cook of Buena Vista Pictures, the several weeks before the event were a little hectic.
Over the last couple weeks, we've been virtually working 24 hours a day in order to get it ready for Saturday.
Around the site, New Yorkers enjoyed their daily routines in the park, almost as usual.
I've heard that it was big, but I just came by today and wow, it's pretty big.
The more people in Central Park, the better. We love it. Right, Mountie?
The Pocahontas premiere used enough electricity to light the World Trade Center and enough audio wattage to power 5 rock concerts. But technology wasn't the only consideration in planning the event.
We're coming into an environmental area. They wanted to make sure that we took care of it while we were here and that when we left it would be the same as when we came here, or better.
The premiere in the park required the efforts of more than 1,500 workers, both for the film presentation and the live stage events that preceded it. The audience was chosen by random drawings held around the United States. The more than 100,000 people began arriving in the afternoon to stake their seats on the Great Lawn and enjoy the time before the screening with friends and family, street performers, picnic suppers, and a variety of special live pre-show performances on the gigantic stage. New York Mayor Giuliani saw the event as perfectly suited to the New York personality.
It really is a tremendous site, and it gives you a sense that something like this could only be done in New York City at this magnitude and with this kind of flair.
As Richard Cook watched months of intense planning and hard work come together flawlessly in the record-breaking event, he was pleased.
It makes you feel great, it really does, especially with all the people having such a good time.
Russell Means, the voice of Chief Powhatan, saluted the press corps that waited at the entrance to the premiere. Disney Vice Chairman Roy Disney was a cheery guest, as was Judy Kuhn, the singing voice of Pocahontas.
It's overwhelming. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I've lived in New York and I've been in showbiz a while, but I've never seen anything like this. Yeah.
Also overwhelmed by the event was the speaking voice of Pocahontas, Irene Bedard.
Oh, it's beyond my wildest dreams.
As the sun set over Manhattan, the show began. 8 specially made 70mm prints of Pocahontas, the only 70mm prints made, began their run. Before the evening ended, nearly 16 miles of film had been projected. Even the sound for this premiere was specially engineered, intentionally offset 12 frames out of synchronization to make sure the sound carried in sync across the 13-acre viewing area. The premiere screening was underway, and the specially constructed 8-story high screens were visible above the treetops. In true Disney fashion, a special live show and sensational fireworks display brought the largest film premiere in history to a suitably spectacular close.